this episode,
Alex Bell continues to be quite interesting.
we've plots of peril aplenty from our podsterons.
We'll learn how a 10-10 became a 10-0 for 26 more Terrorhawks.
Plus, Fab Facts, the usual news, and a marvellous randomiser.
That's all coming up in Pod 74.
Of the Gerry Anderson podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
It's the Gerry Anderson podcast!
Yes.
Just in case you were in any doubt at all.
I think we've said it several times already by this point, and it's only the introduction. Who are you?
I'm Richard James. Who the devil are you?
Jamie Lionel Anderson.
And why are you on my phone?
Because I called you so that we could record the Gerry Anderson podcast, which is a mixture of news and facts and
Fun.
and interviews and stuff every week.
Yeah, we do cram it all in, really, don't we?
Yeah, although probably not crammed enough for some people. We still do go over the hour generally, but,
Yes.
you know, it means we can spend even more time with you, our lovely listeners, also known as our lovely podsterons.
That's right, and we'll be hearing from some of them a little later on. So we've got all the usual, I'm going to say it, gubbins coming up.
Thank you.
Yes, we've got Fab Facts, which has returned. Hooray! We've got the Plot of Peril, which also returns.
Hooray!
Thank you, Jamie. We've got the second part of Jamie's interview with Alex Bell from QI.
Yeah.
And we've also got some tweets and some mentions from the Facebook page as well. I think that's about it, isn't it?
Randomiser?
Of course, how could I possibly forget? Chris Dale's randomiser will be with us a little later on. That's where he sits down in front of a random Gerry Anderson episode to give us his thoughts, reviews, and comments. So we look forward to that. What will it be this week? We don't know, because it's random.
It is random, yeah, that's the thing, that's the gag. And what have you been up to this week, Richard? I know you've been off doing an interview which will be coming up very soon, is that right?
Yes, that's right. An interview, actually, which got a lot of interest on Twitter and on our Facebook group as well, with Gavin Robertson. Now, Gavin Robertson, along with Andrew Dawson, performed the Thunderbirds FAB stage show in the late 80s and throughout the 90s. I think the last production was in 2001. They toured the world with it and played in the West End. And it was lovely, actually, when both Gavin and I mentioned that we were meeting up for our interview. Lots of people on Twitter and on our Facebook group said, yeah, I saw the show. I loved that. So lots of lovely memories from Gerry Anderson fans for the stage show. So yes, that'll be coming up, I think, next weekend. If it's a two-parter, the week after that as well. I'll see what
I think it is. I reckon it's going to be a two-part from what you told me. That's exciting. But Podsterons, who would you like to hear from? We have got some archive interviews which we will be tapping into fairly soon.
Aha.
But if you know of any celebrity fans, if you know of any people who worked on the shows you'd like to hear from, do let us know. We can't always get them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just say no because they don't want to talk about the shows, which is totally fair enough.
Yeah.
But also, Richard, I think I sent you a message today saying that in May
Oh, yes, I can't believe
2020,
this. Yeah.
we will be hitting Pod 100.
I mean, why you're thinking of that now, I've no idea.
Well, lots of stuff has to get planned in advance. But we'd love to do something. Perhaps something live and eventy, I'm thinking. I know I'm sort of springing this on you now, Rich, because I didn't actually say this earlier on, but I would love to do a live recording of the podcast with some other stuff going on and meet some of our lovely podsterons again, because when we did the podcast live for our 50th podiversary, we met lots of our lovely podsterons at the Fab Worlds of Anderson, and that was so nice. So
it was lovely.
I'd really like to repeat that if we can. So. Again, if you've got any ideas, email us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Yeah, great.
Right, shall I stop gabbling on and get on with the rest of it?
Oh, yes, please.
I mean, the thing I'm thinking of will probably delight many of our podsterons and possibly make you slightly grimace, maybe?
Yeah, why don't you just gabble on a bit more?
Okay, well, no, I'm going to let Mark Silk introduce our next segment.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, Fab Facts, Richard's favourite, the favourite of many of our podsterons.
Yeah, that's true, they do love it.
Yeah, because they all got great taste, that's why, Richard. And that's why they listen to this very podcast. See what I did there?
I do.
Yeah, you can't win now. So we used to go through our book of Fab Facts that was published and written by Simon Archer and out in the 90s and early 2000s. We've sort of run that dry a little bit.
Well, we have, yeah.
Yeah, so now we've got new sources of Fab Facts, including one which is secret, which I can't tell you about. And I've got that secret book of Fab Facts in front of me now.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
So it's much bigger than the other one. It's actually not as dense in facts as I'd thought.
Oh.
So
So this won't last long either.
we may need to find another source soon. But I'm building up some other Fab Facts in the meantime. Stuff I keep finding out. Like last week I said I found this new that is lost Gerry Anderson property that I'd forgotten all about.
Yes.
And it's brilliant. And at some point
Great.
we'll say stuff about it. But I'm a bit worried about giving away the plot in case somebody nicks it.
Yeah,
Anyway, Richard, here is the book. You're going to shout Fab at a random point of your choosing. Are you ready?
I'm always ready.
Then here we go.
Fab!
Ooh.
How's that?
Well, Richard, you've stopped us in approximately 1986.
Oh, God, I remember it well.
Do you?
Yeah, I
What were you
do.
doing in 1986?
1986, I was at school taking my O-levels, as they were then.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't do very well. Watching too much Gerry Anderson, you see. That's true.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
Yes, you were.
That's my real education.
I suppose you were watching Terrorhawks, weren't you?
I suppose I must have been, Jamie.
And strangely, that's what this fact concerns.
Oh.
So did you know, Richard, that there were almost 65 episodes of Terrorhawks and not just 39?
Well, really?
Yes.
How come?
Well, the series was sold to Tribune in the US, and it performed so well that Tribune basically expressed an interest in getting another 26 episodes put together after the end of the third batch of 13. So there was a very quick exercise in commissioning new scripts.
Right.
Dad wrote a script called Number One Seed.
Right. About tennis?
About a giant pumpkin, in fact. Almost.
Yeah.
Tony Barwick wrote a story called Attempted Moider.
Oh,
You know, about Moid and
yes,
stuff.
we all know about Moid.
And David Nightingale, who may be known to many fans as the founder of Thunder Books up in Blackpool, which has now changed ownership, but a very happy, jolly and nice face in Gerry Anderson fandom. Except
Right.
that I've got a weird picture of him somewhere in bed with a latex mask of Dad as if they were cuddling together.
Yeah.
Very
I
strange
don't
image.
think he'll thank you for that, Jamie.
Oh, sorry, David. No, it's a well-known image. Everybody's
Okay.
probably seen it. Anyway, so they got all these scripts together, and then, unfortunately, Tribune didn't come up with the money, and the whole thing was canned. So they put all this effort into prepping stuff for another series,
Yeah.
and then it all disappeared, and that was that.
So what became of the script?
Well, the scripts still exist,
Yes.
and in fact, Number One Seed, we turned into an audio episode for the first series of audio Terrorhawks from Big Finish.
Ah. Very
All
good.
about this giant pumpkin thing.
See, so it did see the light of day of sorts in the end.
Yes, it heard the sound of day,
Yeah.
whatever the equivalent
Give me
is.
that. Nice.
So, yeah, there you go. And there was also, after that, after it all was sort of collapsing, everybody was kind of scratching around. We must try and do something with this fantastic series.
Yeah.
There was an idea for a spin-off series about stewed apples.
Right, yes, I can see that.
And Kevin Davis, who did the animated opening titles, which everybody loves so much,
Yeah.
he suggested they do a spin-off series just about the Zeroids and the Cubes,
Oh, yes.
which we then toyed with as
Yes.
Zeroids versus Cubes many years later.
That's right.
There you go. And as we know, there's still legs for Terrorhawks because we've done the audio stuff, and there's Kate Kestrel and the Terrorhawks, the reboot, in the works.
Hooray! Yeah, amazing.
So there you go. That's quite a jam-packed Fab Fact, isn't it?
It really is a jam-packed Fab Fact, and that's easier to say than I thought it would be. Thankfully.
That's why you said it. Okay, there you go. So unless you have any further observations or questions about my Terrorhawks fact, Richard, should we close this one down?
I think we ought to.
Then that's the end of this week's
Terror Fact! Hey, there
Nice.
we go. Well, I did not know that. Isn't that interesting? I mean, there must be lots of scripts left over from, abandoned second or third series. Space
Absolutely.
Prison, for example. There must be some old scripts or treatments out there for a proposed second series that never happened.
Well, I mean, I don't really understand, but on IMDb, there's a whole list of second series titles,
Yeah.
aren't there? Where have they come from?
I don't know. It's odd, isn't it? But of course, when you're making a series, I suppose, you're always looking to the future. And if not assuming, you're always hoping for a second or third series. And you just don't want to be caught on the hop, do you? So I suppose you'll get the groundwork done, get the scripts ready, just in case.
Exactly. You can never assume,
No.
but it's always good to hope. But
Yeah.
in these cases, sadly, it wasn't to be.
There we are. You're listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast. I must just say, do remember to subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to us on. That means that you get notifications every time a new episode appears. It'd be lovely if you could leave us a rating and a review, and also share us with your friends so they can hear us too.
He's back with the rhyme. Nice work, Richard. Thank you. Yes, and actually the sharing thing is really important because every time we say it, people do it, and then we get some new listeners in, and it's really nice.
That's true.
So, don't keep it all to yourself, lovely Podstron.
No.
Tell the world.
That's right, share the love. Exactly.
Do you want some Gerry Anderson news, Richard?
I thought you'd never ask.
Sorry, I've just asked. We're doing it. Here it is. What is it, Richard James?
It's newsy news.
Good. Yes, you're absolutely right, it is. There's not too much news this week.
Okay.
But as always, there is news. Of course there's news.
Yeah.
Let's start off with some merch. Some merch.
Love a bit of that.
We've had lots and lots of emails over the last few months with people saying, why do you do more Fireball XL5 stuff? Come on. Well, I heard your calls. Chris Thompson acted on your calls, and he's done a lovely illustration, a sort of comic-style illustration of Stephen Venus. That is now live on T-shirts and hoodies.
Oh, lovely.
And alongside those XL5 emails, I also got quite a few emails saying, put more Lady P stuff on merch. We want more Lady P.
Of course.
Well, again, your wish is our command. And Lady P's Deadly Danger range is also now available, where you can see her through some shot-out glass.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite cool. There you go.
Yeah.
So pop along and search for those. I think if you just search for Lady P or XL5, you'll find those on the Gerry Anderson store.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the end of this month, Captain Black Friday is coming up. It's just a couple of weeks away. If you sign up to our priority list, you get a chance of getting extra deals, extra discounts, freebies, and more. So if you want to do that, go to bit.ly /CBF19VIP.
That's
It's very
Captain
catchy.
Black Friday.
Yeah.
19 VIP.
Yeah, exactly. So bit.ly /CBF19VIP. And,
So that's a perfect opportunity to pick up those early Christmas gifts, isn't it?
well, yes, because they'll be heavily discounted for 4 days, and then they won't be. So go grab them. If you're not in the mood for shopping, but you are in the mood for reading, may I heartily recommend Chris Dale's wonderful article all about Breakaway and Black Sun's original long-form edits, presumed lost, but not guaranteed destroyed.
Okay.
So there was originally a really long Breakaway edit and a long Black Sun edit.
Right.
Which were cut down and are thought to be lost. But
Yes.
Chris examines those, why they happened, why they were cut down, what extra material was there, all that
I
sort of
see.
stuff. So really, really good if you're a Space 1999 fan.
And who isn't?
Who isn't?
Yeah.
Over on the YouTube channel, where you can watch plenty of Space 1999 stuff. In fact, we've got some video clips from my Samira and Kevin interview, which Ross is putting up.
Lovely.
Each week, so you actually see Samira enthusing about Space 1999, which is something to behold. But if you missed Fab Live last week, then you can catch up there. Fab Live 28 is on the Fab Live playlist.
Great.
So
That's fun, wasn't it?
And it went without a hitch, didn't it,
The
Richard?
first time in a long time, Jamie. Yes, it's great.
I can't remember the last time we didn't have a technical hitch.
March 2018.
Probably, yes. Oh, by the way, Richard, I have actually put in a pencil booking for our special Christmas edition of Fab Live on the 2nd of December.
2nd of December.
Yeah.
Right here.
So, and at the location, which we will
Lovely.
reveal once I've actually booked it in properly.
Great.
Also on the YouTube channel, though, is our new Dick Spanner primer. Now, a lot of
jumping
people.
Jehoshaphat.
Thank you. Yes, a lot of people didn't see Dick Spanner originally. They don't even know it was a Gerry Anderson show. So I think this is going to take a few people by surprise, especially with the voice of Shane Rimmer in there.
Yeah.
So yes, right now as we're recording, Chris is putting the finishing touches. By the time this is live, it will be on the YouTube channel along with all our other primers. So there's tons and tons of content there, as you keep telling me every week, Richard, that you often disappear down the Gerry Anderson wormhole on YouTube.
I'm afraid I do, when I should be doing some work, yes.
That's all right, we all do it.
Easily done.
But, Podstrons, what would you like to see on our YouTube channel? Do you want more documentary content? Do you want to see some more Beyond Anderson from Chris Dale? I know that Ross is working on a new feature. I think this might be an exclusive or a spoiler, which he's calling Fab Focus.
Aha.
There's always something with a fab in it, isn't there?
Yeah.
But what do you want more of? Do you want more free episodes? We can do that. Do you want more live streams? We can probably do that too. Let us know. Just email podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk with your suggestions, and I will try to enact them or not if we can't. There you
Great.
go.
Yeah, lovely.
Right, I need a breather. That's the end of the Gerry Anderson news.
That was the news. That was the news. Ah, David Bowie popped in.
That's nice of him.
Wasn't it? I didn't know he was such a fan. Didn't know he listened.
Richard, yes, I mean, I'm surprised too, but equally, you've been keeping that one quiet. I mean, you'll happily get your Wogan out at the drop of a hat, but that's the first time I've heard... there's that hat dropped again.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Any others you're hiding from us?
Oh, plenty more where that came from. But, I like to eke them out, one at a time.
One every 74 episodes of the Gerry Anderson podcast, right?
Exactly. Well, we've got a long way to go, haven't we? Now, over on Twitter, Danny Moy was commenting about the Gerry Anderson World Cup that's been running on Twitter recently, whereby the various Gerry Anderson series were pitted against each other in a series of rounds, the winner, of course, being Thunderbirds. But secondly, and I think this surprised a lot of us, it was UFO, wasn't it, in second place?
I know, UFO got the silver medal.
Yeah, that's right. So Danny Moy wonders, does this officially mean that UFO is better than Space 1999?
Well, it's really interesting because it's made me slightly reevaluate, my list of top fives. Because actually, Richard, we sealed our top five in envelopes, didn't we, several weeks before the final was done, and we had an exactly matching top five.
We did.
Which was Thunderbirds, Space 1999,
Captain Scarlet,
UFO,
Stingray.
Yeah. But I've been going back and reading comments on articles and looking at social media and stuff a little bit, and it's amazing how many people actually have quite a strong preference for UFO.
Yeah. There you go.
So, I mean, I think they're pretty close together.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's amazing. You find out new things all the time and you appreciate the shows in new ways.
Nice. Chris Emerson replied to Alex Bell's post about his first part of his interview on the last podcast. Chris says, if you haven't played the Thunderbirds board game, it's really good. By the same people who made a game called Pandemic, if you know that, and similar in a lot of ways too. Thunderbirds board game. Sounds fun.
I've got a copy of it on my shelf just up behind me.
And finally on Twitter, Thunder Furybird said, got my friends to listen to the podcast and they say it's great. I enjoy everything about it, so keep up the good work. Podster on out. Thank you very much for that.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. So very easy to get in touch with us on Twitter. Just hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast, or you can tag him, I am Jamie Anderson, or me, Richard N. James, and we'll see your tweets there.
Now, Richard, I forgot to mention something in the news, which we did mention in Fab Live.
Yeah.
But you've got some news, haven't you, about where Podsterons can see you during an arena tour. How do they do that?
You're right. Yes, that's true. Should I mention that now?
I think you should.
Well, if you're a fan of David Walliams, or if you have family members, children, nieces, nephews, godchildren, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, why not bring them along to a spectacular arena tour of David Walliams' Grandpa's Great Escape? We're going to Wembley Arena, Sheffield, Manchester, Glasgow, Newcastle, Nottingham, and Liverpool, I think. 3 shows a day, but we're only in each venue for a day, I think, apart from Birmingham and Wembley. So just go to grandpa'sgreatescapelive.co.uk.
That's right, yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. Yes, and if you are coming, do let me know, because it'd be lovely to meet a Podstron or two to keep me company over Christmas and the New Year. We open on 23rd of December and we finish on the 4th of January, so quite a quick run, buzzing around the country.
Yeah, very exciting.
It's very exciting.
What a busy man. You're always in demand when it comes to the things on the stage, eh, Dickie?
Well, aren't I? I'm a creature of the theatre, you know.
You are. Which sort of links quite neatly if you force it and twist it a bit and then stuff it in with hammer it in with a coaster.
Yeah.
To your theatrical feature, creative feature, doesn't it?
You could only mean the plot of Peril.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
All right, here it is. Let me just get the get that thing. Come on. There we are. Got it. Right, here we are. Here is the amazing plot device.
What was the banging for?
I was just having to hammer in a nail on the bottom of it, stop it scraping on the carpet.
It's got nails in it.
Oh yeah.
Gosh.
Rubber bands, sellotape, all sorts.
Yeah, nice.
Now, you may remember last week I gave you three things, or rather the plot device gave you three things: a character, a random everyday object, and a location. The character was Captain Podley from Space Precinct, the random everyday object was a cheese grater, and the location was Buckingham Palace. Had a few entries this week, so we'll start off on Twitter where Simpsons Clips 24 said, roving reporter Simpsons Clips 24 here with this week's Gerry Anderson podcast Plot of Peril. I'm at Buckingham Palace where I'm told that Captain Podley has gone blind and rubbed his fingers on a cheese grater. When I asked him for comments, he said, "It was the most violent book I've ever read." Think about it.
I've got it.
But Alex Pass, I think, did very well this week as well on our Facebook page, saying this: Captain Podley goes for lunch in the precinct canteen and gets caught in a time storm, as you do, finding himself back on present-day Earth at Buckingham Palace. Fortunately, a charity Halloween party is in full swing, although Podley isn't terribly impressed by the comments on his freaky mask. Stumbling across a cheese grater stamped property of DCPD, Podley manages to track down the time portal back home before it closes and departs, but not before making his apologies, as he's unable to give directions to a familiar-looking young NYPD officer who's visiting from the States.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice bit of timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly going on there.
Yeah. Lovely work.
Yeah, and Tom Hodden also said, no idea for Plot of Peril this week, but thanks to Richard James and his device, I'm seriously trying to work out if Gerry Anderson and Stanley Kubrick were hired to fake a British moon landing, but it was abandoned as too expensive, is a workable plot for a 75-page mystery. I should Coco. Go for it, Tom. I'd like to read that.
Perfect.
One of those things that could actually happen. Anyway, I know you're all chomping at the bit for this week's Plot of Peril.
They are. I can hear them from here.
I know. Engage the plot device and see what it gives us this week. Are you ready? First of all, your character. Yeah! Oh, Zelda of Guck. Ooh. And your random everyday object. Yeah! It's a pair of tweezers. And finally, your location. Yeah! Oh, San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. There you go, Podsterons. There are your three things. Can you concoct a convincing Gerry Anderson style plot using Zelda of Guck, a pair of tweezers, and San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge? Now, we're going to give you a little bit more time from now on because we're very aware that you might be listening to this on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and actually we generally record the podcast on a Wednesday or Thursday, don't we? So that only leaves a couple of days for people to get their entries in. So I will reveal the answer to that in Pod 77. So that gives you 3 weeks. I shall remind you each week of the 3 things that the plot device has given us and reveal the answers in Pod 77. And then we'll do it all again. How's that?
Perfect. What a good idea, Richard.
Yeah.
And let's make it a plot worthy of the extra 26 episodes of Terrorhawks that never were.
Yeah, great. And then we could turn them into an audio series and approach Big Finish with it.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sure Big Finish want to do more Terrorhawks. There we go. Ideal. Lovely work. But if in the meantime, while you're working out your plot of peril, you have any questions or anything you want to send us in, do so to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk because we'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
And if you have yet to join our Facebook group for our listeners, how do listeners do that, Richard?
Well, it's quite easy. If you're on Facebook, just head on over to facebook.com/groups/podsterons and join in the fun there. People post their art, their pictures of their merchandise, their thoughts, their funny memes, all sorts of fun.
Mildly insulting jokes about you and I.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah. Thanks, Podsterons. Thanks. Actually, it is a very friendly community, as we keep saying, and we keep hearing more and more from Gerry Anderson fans all over the world of all ages, which is just so brilliant. So
yes.
Thank you all for being lovely humans and wonderful fans.
Yes, that's right.
Ah, right.
I'm talking of fans of all ages.
Yes.
Eh?
We're on the same page there. Go on. You can lead the charge on this one.
Well, it's time for part 2 of Jamie's interview with Alex Bell, known as one of the QI elves and also a sometime host of the...
No Such Thing as a Fish
the
podcast.
Fish thing.
Yeah, the fish thing. Yeah,
no
that's
such
it.
thing as a fish. Do you know why it's called that, by the way?
I did read it once. But do you know, when I originally started listening to it, I was so sort of unsure because of the title, because I thought it was a bit impenetrable. I was like, oh, you're going to have to know about this to get the podcast. So I almost didn't give it a try. But why is that, Richard?
isn't it something to do with the fact that actually every fish is as distinct from every other fish that they're not actually the same species?
Oh, I see.
I think that's right. I think every fish is a thing on its own. So there's no such thing as a fish. There's a trout or a salmon or a mackerel or whatever it might be. But they are not all the same thing, apparently.
And that's where it came from.
I think so.
Gosh, well, you learn something new every week on the Gerry Anderson podcast.
We might as well not hear from Alex Bell now. I think I've done it, haven't I?
We've got all of our facts, but look, he's queued up anyway, so should we just hit play on his interview? Here he is. Things like Joe 90, did that ever cross your radar?
Not until later. I came across it, but I wasn't really aware of the universe and the fact they all fitted together really until I got older, and then I kind of like looked it up online and was like, oh, I get it now. Like this was in this order. But Joe 90, I watched a few episodes of, and I don't know. I have the draw. I love a show about a big organization and like kind of exciting big things happening, and so I think that's why like Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds and Stingray were the kind of the draws. But
do you think Joe was a bit parochial and small and this sort of thatched cottage thing? And, I don't like Joe.
I have to say, no, I was about to say I hate pretty much all of the children in all of the series. Like the children in Thunderbirds, because there's a great episode, a Christmas episode, and I love the episode, but all of the episodes with the children in, I'm just like, ugh, these children are disgusting. Like they're so naive and they speak so weirdly, and like
and they're ugly puppets.
Creep me out. Yeah.
Most Super Mario Nation child puppets, with the exception of Joe, to be fair, are really ugly little monsters.
Yeah.
Right
they don't
from
look right.
From Jimmy Gibson in Supercar, they're just gross. Okay, so on that note, let's leave the puppets behind.
But I do love how the evolution of the puppets from, I think you need to do like one of those Ascent of Man things with all the series, because they go so cartoony right at the beginning, and I've never really seen Zegcars or much of any of the really early things, but like they go from these crazy bulbous things with massive eyes and all crazy expressions to Captain Scarlet, which is so serious and like kind of, just trying to look exactly like human. It's and they're all in proportion then as well, right? Thunderbirds are the heads are a bit big for
they're
the bodies.
Still the large heads,
and then Captain Scarlet is all in proportion
because they move the solenoid for the mouth into the chest for Scarlet.
Is that why the heads are so big in Thunderbirds? Yeah.
That's, so one thing I'll say is Chris Thompson, who will hopefully listen to this, who's our designer, I've been banging on about an evolution of puppetry t-shirt for a while, so there you go.
Great. Get
on with that, Chris, please. That'd be great.
You've got one person already buying it.
There you go, one sold, done. And then, I mean, if you had to pick in proportion puppets then versus the more caricatured of Thunderbirds and Stingray, did it matter to you when you were watching it, or
no? I specifically, I think considering they're puppets, I thought the design of the faces, they're super recognizable, and I was looking at that list of. It's great when you can make a show of puppets because you get to cast literally anyone you like, and also you're literally casting them as well, which is cool. But Jeff Tracy is based off that guy from the Beverly Hillbillies, and Lady Penelope is based on this person, stuff like that. So, and they're all super recognizable, and that was just such a good job, like making the faces match the things. I feel like Captain Scarlet, they all looked a little bit more similar to each other. They were still like good and recognizable, but you mainly recognize them from the colors and whoever was in that ridiculous hovery chair was the guy in charge. Captain White, Commander White,
yes.
And all the others, they all kind of had the same job anyway. So it's goodies versus baddies, and there was a proper villain with the Mysterons, which is possibly the greatest, like one of the greatest villains in television. I mean, that is.
I think so.
Considering that there's no logic behind what they do, so actually, the moment you start thinking what's their aim, you're like. But maybe that's what makes them so great, because they're so unpredictable. They're not human. They're kind of animals. They could do anything. They're super powerful.
Yeah.
And at any point, they could destroy the Earth. They don't, but they seem to create this weird havoc. And then this crazy ability to shoot light into any place. And everyone's just frozen in place almost. And they're just listening. It's really eerie. And that's what made it terrifying. But imagine doing that with live action. Like, that would be, it was groundbreaking in that show, and would be so groundbreaking to do it even in 2020.
It would be very cool.
Fertile ground of TV we have.
I do think, though, we'd have to stop the Mysterons spelling out their exact plan every week at the start.
That's true, and you don't also need to introduce yourselves to the Mysterons. Like, we've got the message. It's like our aunt who rings up and gives her full name and phone number at the beginning of every voicemail message. You're like, we get it,
Yeah, and I don't know, I can never quite get over the fact that, it was all based on a mistake. And if these are supposed to be super beings, Get
Yes,
what
the
Captain
first
Black
episode.
shot shot that first thing, thinking they were going to be attacked. I mean, surely, a little meeting. Sorry about that. No harm done. You've reconstructed.
Is that not the futility and ridiculousness of war? There, you could take. Everyone always says, "Oh, there's loads of religious imagery in Captain Scarlet," which there may or may not be, but you can draw all of this kind of stuff out of these shows, and I think it's a good show to study and be like this enormous conflict with so many explosions. It's a good theme for a show, for a production that is really good at blowing stuff up. You may as well write a kind of almost Doctor Strangelove type series about so many deaths, and the hero is somebody who can't die and therefore is the most invulnerable, is the super being, because that's the only thing that kind of puts them apart from everyone else, is that they can't die. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this.
I like your analysis. I know. I do like your analysis because it is. There's a book coming out actually, which I will give a plug for, by Fred McNamara, called Spectrum is Indestructible, and it's basically like an essay analysis of the whole series, episode by episode, theme by theme. So maybe that's a book for you.
I really should read that. Yeah, I mean, when I watched it when I was younger, I was in it for Skybase, just a huge floating base. I mean, Doctor Who had one, didn't it?
It did.
I can't remember what it's called now.
The unit.
Yeah.
Helicarrier thing, whatever it was called.
Obviously a straight rip-off from Captain Scarlet, but...
Well, at least they gave a Thunderbirds reference and a Captain Scarlet reference in one of the episodes, didn't they? I think, Capaldi episode. Right, I'd say we were leaving the past behind. We are leaving the past behind now. Live-action shows, did you see anything of UFO in Space 1999?
The original live-actions, I thought we were going to talk about the Thunderbirds live-action. I was like, I saw that.
No, we're not going to talk about that yet.
No, I haven't really, except that UFO, I stumbled upon the title sequence, because I love title sequences just generally, and I watch all sorts of title sequences on YouTube, and I've watched it maybe 5 times, absolutely pissing myself. I was the funniest thing I've ever seen, which not to be as in, because it is the most
crazy
70s, 80s, whatever it is, with the starts with the eye and the crazy editing. But then it's iconic. As soon as you get over the fact that it's old, you suddenly realize it's like watching the Star Trek intro or something. It's just incredibly bold directing.
And awesome music.
I love it. Awesome music. So I've actually just I wrote 2 episodes for series Q of QI, which is just broadcasting now. And next week and the week after, I've written a 2-part episode called Quests. I made 2-parter because no words begin with Q and we were really struggling for material. And Quest 2 is sci-fi based, it's everything. And I've mixed up Star Wars and Star Trek and all sorts like that. And there's so many references to, there's a whole question about Mary Quant and miniskirts and all of the shows that came out of that. And I really wanted to use UFO pictures and stuff like that, because it's just it's just the design it's so striking. It's you just don't, I guess it makes you think, what shows today have I seen in the last sort of 5 years that came out in the last 5 years will be visually as distinctive and remembered? And there are so few. I mean, even the brightest shows I don't know, The Good Place or something like that, that have a really kind of punchy feel to them when you watch them. If you turn the sound off, something like that, then they're not quite as distinctive as some of the stuff you get from that era of television.
Yeah, it's got that kind of candy shop color palette and bizarre visuals and stuff. But I know what you mean. There's nothing quite like silver skirts and dresses and purple wigs on the moon and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and the cars and stuff. I mean, all the design by Meddings and Mike Trim and Brian Johnson, those guys. They just
don't seem scared to be ridiculous, and I think people probably had less of a... People were ready to roll with it. The viewers were kind of, there was less of the future then to kind of, that was still a really exciting idea.
Yeah. Although it was only 10 years in the future. 1980,
really?
Yes, it was made in 69, broadcast 70,
that is
set in 1980.
Then, actually. I mean, I don't know quite how they thought technology was going to evolve, but...
Yeah. But it's funny that, I mean, the base is set beneath a film studio.
Yeah.
Which is an unusual location.
Yeah.
But I was writing a document for somebody the other day, and I was doing quick synopses of all these different shows.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of parallels between UFO and Scarlet, really.
Really?
Well, it's a secret defense organization.
Yeah.
Defending the Earth from alien threats. That's
true.
That is a repeating thing through a lot of Anderson shows, although they're quite different. So you should.
Well, I guess Thunderbirds had the Hood, which is as good as an alien threat because he's vaguely supernatural, and and then you've got what have you got? Stingray has got
Titan.
Kind of that's an alien, right?
He lives under the sea.
Yeah.
He's not specified as being alien. He's just he's just down there, but essentially he's non-human. So.
Yeah, exactly. And ocean and space are as far as scientists and everyone else are concerned, are identical. Like they're huge, unknown, vast areas that we haven't explored and that can have anything down there. And so yeah, you're right. They're all the same. They're all the same show. Why did he make all these different shows?
Amazing, but so different.
Yeah.
So okay, so you haven't seen Space 1999? Then, am I right?
haven't. No, I'm afraid not.
So that's worth.
I really should. Yeah, I really
out.
check it out. Actually, yeah.
I mean, it's not like you haven't got any work to do.
I do know exactly.
But yes,
It's my worry is I get hooked. Like with all of these shows, like I have such a list of things I'm supposed to watch, and then occasionally I watch something and just be like, oh, well, now I need to watch it 3 times and read all the literature. So I get that. Certainly stuff that's like kind of sci-fi things I get obsessed with.
Yeah. Well, space is a really interesting show, sort of philosophically, metaphysically, scientifically.
Really?
It's yeah. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's worth it. So I feel like you're definitely the wrong age for Terrorhawks and
I was,
Dick Spanner, which probably means nothing to you.
I laughed for like a solid 5 minutes when I saw it. But I mean, it's supposed to be stupid, right? Like,
it's a comedy. It's a comedy. So
no, I haven't seen those. No, unfortunately.
Space Precinct?
No, I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay, so I can feel you want to talk about the live action film.
No, I didn't want to. That's just what I thought you were referring to.
No. Well, you've dropped yourself in it now because we're going to have to talk about it. Now, I don't know, 10 years ago, I probably couldn't have brought myself to talk about it because Dad wasn't involved. It was all very difficult
it was, like, controversial and
time.
Difficult
And even now when I see it, there's so much about it that, I could almost cry at the treatment of it.
Yeah.
But what we've learned is that there's a load of people who've come to Anderson shows because they saw Thunderbirds in 2004. They saw that live action film and then it's led them into...
It really does surprise me, actually. And I think I know exactly the journey you mean in that, I mean, all the time as well, I watch, because we're living in the era of reboots, and there are so many shows that I, as somebody who kind of works in the industry, you fantasize about, imagine if I got hold of the rights to that show and I could make my own version of it, and then it gets remade and it's not quite, even if it's great, but it's not quite right, you still feel like incredibly annoyed and like you've been cheated of something. And and I think I'd certainly, if like that film is very different. It's almost as if Thunderbirds wasn't made for kids, and that was. And and so I watched it. I was probably a bit old for it, I guess. I don't know if it was aimed at me. When did it come out?
2004.
2004. So I was 12. So I was probably a little bit older for it. And I have a younger brother and sister, and we had it on DVD, and then we must have watched it loads of times. And there are a few elements that I like about it, and a few I did think it was really super cheesy and American, and I didn't like. Even then, I could tell I didn't like the writing and the jokes. Like you can tell I was going to be a writer where like I didn't actually write anything, but I would sit and just criticize everyone else's writing. And be like, that's not a funny joke. But there's something really exciting about seeing a non-live action thing that you love being turned into live action, because you're just amping that up. It's like putting it on a kind of drug and just being like, I'm so excited to see, I don't know, Harry Potter that I've been reading. I'm so excited to see it with real people and it's becoming real. So there was that kind of excitement of just seeing a real life Tracy Island, which was pretty cool. I thought the Tracy Island was pretty awesome. I didn't like the kind of cartoonish silliness of it. Like it was silly, but I know so many young, it's perfect for young kids as a film. If you take it out of the universe and just show it as a film to kids, they absolutely love it, right? And that's got to be some form of success. And you're right. If it brings them to the original, that's great. But,
that's happened a lot. There's a lot of guys who work for us now who came to it through that film. So
it's difficult.
I can't hate it that much.
I think I would hope that it becomes a stepping stone for more future Thunderbirds, because I know that there's a CGI kids one which I've watched quite a bit of online, like clips. Like it's really well. So this is the most boring thing to talk about on the podcast. I think it's really well produced online because they put loads of clips up in a really good way. So it's literally my job. Anyway, but I watched quite a lot of that, and I really like the love that's gone into that so clearly. Like again, totally different show, but there's so much passion behind. Like there's so much stuff that I think they've in some ways improved on the original in the way that, like really lame stuff, like all of the vehicles are kept inside the same hangar that's kind of a cave, which in my mind, I'm like, oh, that cave could have pre-existed, so therefore that like makes less work. And I know I'm thinking that as a 27-year-old, but I was thinking that when I watched Thunderbirds when I was much younger, and I was like, I don't understand how all of this got here under this island. So it kind of, and the way that everything's really modular inside the Thunderbirds things, which kind of explains away another issue with the original Thunderbirds, which was, why on earth do they have this vehicle specifically designed for this one like really weird fire in a huge tower, and like they've got all this floating equipment that they can do with. Like, where did that come from? Who anticipated this was going to happen?
But that's the over complexity thing again, isn't it? And that was part of the attraction. That, like, what are they going to unveil this time?
Yeah,
because I know there are a couple of things that treatments that Dad wrote for shows that weren't made, where he essentially had kind of manufacturing plants in the center of a base or a main vehicle. would make whatever you wanted, and they become a bit like Sonic Screwdriver. Well, you know. It's not like, do we have a vehicle, but we'll just make it because we can do whatever we want. And that kind of takes a little bit of the drama out, even though
you're totally right.
on Classic, you knew that they would have a vehicle of some sort.
A specific fire with a specific hose
but
going
that was
on.
really cool.
It was really cool. That was exciting. And there was always an element on, and there was always, like, you know, they were balancing things on the Thunderbirds and pushing them up and dropping people down on lines. And that was what I like something that was just so, like, the way they made the puppets really sweaty all the time was so great. And their hair would be all over the place. And then if they got dropped or fell down like a landslide or something, they would just go totally limp because they were just puppets being dropped on that thing. And it was just so awful and traumatic to watch. But yeah, in the new anime, it's called Thunderbirds Are Go, isn't it? The new one. And it's like the pacing is obviously so much higher. You can see it's I think that in the same way that like the old one was made in the original one was made in the 60s really successfully and worked so well for kids, and everyone grew up on that. This one has been made really well for new kids television and like has hit so many buttons. I have a 2-year-old godson, so I've seen my fair share of like even younger than that kids TV, and some of it's like almost psychedelic, like Peppa Pig, and there's one crazy one, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's a little bit Thunderbirdsy. It's set in like a prehistoric world with like, they're like half cars, half dinosaurs, and there's one human kid who drives around. And it's really educational. So like they'll be driving around and then like, oh, the road will be broken, like blocked by some things, and they'll have to try and clear it. And they'll be like, we're going to have to make a fulcrum. Let's learn about fulcrum. And then they teach them about fulcrum. They're like, I'm not following this. This is advanced stuff. Really weird. But children's TV is all over the place in psychology and everything, and what they're aiming to do. And I don't know. I really like a lot of the clips that I've seen of the new one, so I think it's good. But yeah, I would like to hope that all of these are stepping stones to a future. You know, I want to see a Netflix multi-billion-dollar live action, you know, Mad Men Thunderbirds. Wouldn't that be fantastic to see that?
Well, I would still be gunning for Scarlet, I think.
You think Scarlet?
Dark Captain Scarlet, because to me, the kind of he'll always come back to life thing. But I just wonder what he goes through.
Yes.
From that, you know, sort of physiologically, neurophysiologically,
so
does he change? Is it painful?
As a journey, as a character journey, and the conflicts in there, that can be really interesting. And giving them personal lives. None of these people really have any personal lives apart from, you know, and you know that you're Tintin and Alan. You're like, oh my god! Anytime anything happens between them, you're rooting for them so much because there's no other romantic drama in any of this universe. No one seems to be with anyone else.
Yeah. Although a UFO, there is a lot of that. That's when it kind of took a step up. Yeah. There's some great stuff with Straker, and he has to make the decision between his son dying and completing a vital mission.
Yes.
That kind of thing. So they do have personal lives, and he had a troubled marriage and all that kind of stuff. So they started to bring that in a bit more in the grown-up stuff.
What do you, without like, don't try not to read too much into how my mind leapt straight to this, but what do you think of Team America?
So I really liked Team America.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for what it was. What it has done, unfortunately, is to basically anyone who was born in the kind of 10 years plus before Team America and since then, especially in the US, the chances are their only experience of marionettes is Team America.
Team America, yeah.
They've got no idea of anything that came before. They basically see it as, oh, this is such a ridiculous way to make something. It makes a mockery of marionette puppetry.
Totally,
So in terms of, because we've got various things in the pipeline, one of which is a puppet-driven show, which they're not controlled by wires anymore. We've gone down a different route because of the limitations, and also because if you say to anyone in international TV and broadcast, you know, oh, we want to make a show for kids with marionettes,
the first thing they think of is this.
They go, what, you mean like Team America?
I feel it's kind of like what the thick of it has done for all real politics, which is somehow ruin it so that I can't watch anything like Newsnight I can't watch Newsnight anymore because all I can think about is that Ben Swain interview from the thick of it, and it's such good satire that it's kind of actually marked the original, which is bizarre.
And that's kind of what's happened with Team America. So for everything I love about it, and it was done with a lot of love, not by Matt and Trey. There's a lot of myths about them being huge Thunderbirds fans, and that's why they did it. They didn't. They were aware of it, and they thought, what's the most ridiculous way we can make this? But there were lots of people that worked on it.
You can't make that kind of film without an insane amount of passion for, or maybe developing that passion as you go along. And I feel like they must have developed some kind of passion. I mean, they're certainly, I don't know, this is going off topic, but from a comedic perspective, developing a language of humor. And I was watching videos of how they learned how to be funny with the puppets, and kind of say, well, they were writing this script for these puppets, and they realized it didn't work. And actually, you can't write jokes; they have to be serious. They have to be taking it really seriously, which is exactly what would happen in Thunderbirds.
Yeah, well, that's why it worked. I think. I mean, you know,
anyway, sorry,
things like the vomiting and all that.
It's totally off topic. Sorry.
No,
yeah.
well, it's not because it's related. I mean, Dad hated it. He got up to the vomiting scene and then he switched it off.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he felt like it was a bit of an insult.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't really.
I mean, however it's made, in whatever spirit it's made, like, so I think anyone like me and everyone in my generation watch it as a kind of, it's a love letter to that era of things, as well as being just absolutely hilarious.
A slightly mocking love letter. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, like, but when you watch original Thunderbirds, you always watch it with a bit of a smile. Or any of these, when you watch these original Super Mario Nation series, you do tend to watch them with a bit of a smile because they do change. The context of them changes, and if you put it against watching all modern TV, you do find things funny that you wouldn't have found funny if you were watching it as a kid in the 1960s.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's a lot of very 1960s dialogue and stuff, which either is, mildly offensive or cringeworthy and sometimes hilarious.
And the voices as well, which they're not necessarily funny, they're fantastic, and there's no way to describe them other than 1960s kind of American newsreadery, amazing voice acting.
But you don't get voices like that now.
Where has it gone?
I don't know, but if I say, Scott Tracy or Gordon or whatever, I'm assuming you can instantly hear their voices. Whereas if I say, I don't know, some character from a modern kids show, you're much less likely to be able to instantly recall that because they've not become homogenous, but they're not as characterful as they used to be.
No, they're really not. What I did find quite interesting was I went to see Concorde last week.
Yeah.
So for QI, we're currently researching the series R. So I really want to do a Rockets episode and get some Thunderbird stuff in.
Would love it if you would.
It would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. So I've been going, and we go do museum trips. So I went to Jodrell Bank to look at some kind of radio telescope stuff, and I went to Bristol Aerospace to look at Concorde because I love Concorde as well, and it was actually a bit of an excuse to just go and have a look at a cool plane. And Concorde is Fireflash like that. Pretty much. I didn't really realize it until I got there and I saw the square engines on Concorde, and I was just like, that's brilliant. So then I was sort of googling it, and I was like, oh, which one came first? And kind of was just interested. And there was a really interesting story about when Gerry Anderson went to visit I think it was his brother's airbase where he worked, and he was being shown around and introduced to people just as a kind of friend of his brother, and they were sort of asking him what he did, and he didn't really want to tell them, and he eventually said, I make Thunderbirds, and they were like, oh my god, and brought all of the engineers in, and they were all huge fans of Thunderbirds. And then apparently, like, the engineers of Concorde are really heavily inspired by his artwork, and that's just crazy. Of all things, Concorde that's amazing.
It's real life. Well, it's interesting then, the kind of real life inspiration for the design, because a lot of the stuff was rooted in a fascination with aviation that Dad had, and Derek Meddings and the other stuff. So although it was kind of fantastical, it was real. But also, like you say, the inspiration and the people involved. So the rollout of Concorde in '67, they played the Thunderbirds March.
They did, didn't they? Yeah, they got the Royal Artillery Brigade.
Yeah, no, we've been arguing about this on the podcast for the last few weeks. It was '67 for the rollout of the prototype in France, not the '69 first flight.
Right.
So we've been trying to clear that for weeks and weeks and weeks. But that happens all the time. So this little Thunderbird 3 that I've got here, one of these has been to the ISS.
No way. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was there 6 months ago or so. So David, I've forgotten his surname, but I think he's the director of basically director of going into space.
Yeah. He's on front row in the control room.
He asked one of the astronauts to take Thunderbird 3 up, and I've got photos of it inside.
That's fantastic.
The ISS.
Is it still up there?
No, it's come back safely, and it's back in his possession. But
I bet he has a little Tracy Island. He went and lifted it out and launched it in and came back again.
Well, the photo I've got, which is brilliant, is, I don't know when I'm saying it correctly, the cupola.
Oh, yeah.
With all the kind of viewing
window.
Exactly.
Big bubble that you can go into.
Yeah, so it's framed beautifully with Thunderbird 3 floating in the middle of it above Earth. It's just beautiful.
That's fantastic.
And but these things happen all the time. We hear about people who've gone into kind of doing humanitarian work and rescue work because they're inspired by international rescue people who work in AI, because they love watching Brayman, the robot from Thunderbirds, or even Robert the robot from Fireball XL5. It's all over the place.
It's amazing. It's amazing how much influence it's had in world culture. It's incredible, the reach.
And continues to do so. All right, Alex, I'm going to start wrapping you up now in terms of, because I think we could go on forever.
Really,
with all
we would never stop.
Stuff. So with all the kind of enjoyment you've had of, let's just kind of narrow it down to Stingray, Thunderbirds, and Captain Scarlet. We've kind of touched on the over complexity and the grand scale and that kind of thing. Can you kind of summarize what it is about those things, those shows, that really grabbed you and drew you in and made you, do stupid things like buy a Thunderbirds Christmas jumper and a box set of Super Mario Nation Blu-rays?
Oh, that's such a good question.
It can be many things.
the technology and the kind of the majesty of what they're doing and the quirkiness. I think it's that weird combination of, on the one hand, if you take Thunderbirds, it's very serious. It's they're doing a job, like they're rescuing people. It's about death and it's about fire and explosions and terrorism and really adult themes. And then you've got, on the other side, you've got these really quirky launch sequences. You've got these quite funny jokes. Everything looks quite quirky because it's puppets anyway. So there's that, which kind of is it's just a brilliant way of looking at the world. And then I think the fact that it was all real and that it was all puppets was just the fact that it existed somewhere. It's not a drawing or a cartoon, that somewhere in a studio was filming this. And that's something that's definitely, like, I love practical effects. I have very little interest in making any kind of TV other than like live action television where you can do things and you have it right there and there's the kind of magic of it existing. And that's definitely got to be part of the fascination of it for me. And finally, I think, sorry, this is like 8 different things. The style is of it's good. A whole universe of, fashion, of building design and architecture, of sort of vision of engineering of the future is still so futuristic. Like 50 years or so, like more than 50 years then.
54 years.
54 years
today.
Ago. It's 54 years today. We haven't even mentioned this. It's Thunderbirds Day today and it's International Podcast Day. And I didn't realise either of those things when we decided to do this, which is amazing.
It's perfect. This is a bit like I did the Space 1999 chat on Breakaway Day, which is the kind of anniversary day in Space 1999 when the moon is hurled out of Earth's orbit. So these things keep happening, but it's nice.
Great,
Happy Thunderbirds Day.
Happy Thunderbirds Day.
Alex, you've been awesome. Now, if people want to find you online or see your work, how can they do that?
At Alex Bell, I'm on Twitter. That's probably the best place to go.
Okay, and they should watch QI Series Q.
Do watch QI, Series Q. It's going out on Fridays at 10 p.m. on BBC Two, and it's going out, so I think we're on the 3rd episode now, so it'll be going all the way out till Christmas.
Okay, and catch up on iPlayer.
Yeah, all on iPlayer. XLs go out at some point as well.
Brilliant. And can I get a promise from you now that you'll do your best to include some Gerry Anderson rockets or robots,
100%.
perhaps?
I'm going to definitely be in touch with you about that because we're going to get some rights signed and so that we can use pictures.
Awesome. Done. Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, how lovely.
It was really, really nice. He made me a very nice cup of tea.
Oh, right.
And then afterwards we went to the pub and he insisted on buying me a beer, even though he's the one that had, done the favour by doing the interview. Isn't that nice?
That is nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
it's interesting because when I saw Gavin Robertson recently, I don't think he bought me a beer.
Oh, did he not?
No.
And didn't you meet in a pub?
Yeah, we did as well. Yeah. What went on there?
You're interviewing the wrong people. Do follow Alex on Twitter. He's well worth a follow. All sorts of interesting stuff there. Quite interesting stuff.
Exactly.
He's at Alex Bell.
Yep.
Spelt as it sounds.
Yeah.
And coming up next week, we've got Gavin Robertson,
That's right. Yeah.
who was in the Thunderbirds FAB stage show and now does all sorts of touring shows of his own, right?
Yes, he does. Yes, he devises many of his own pieces. A James Bond parody that I'm sure many of you out there will be interested in seeing as well. But do remember, of course, there are lots of interviews on our past podcast. Now, Phil Steer, who we haven't mentioned for a while...
Oh, yes, back in the days of the Phil Steer podcast.
That's right. Well, he wrote on our Facebook group, over a year after first listening to the podcast, Pod 17, I finally got around to returning where it all began with the prequel, Pod 1, and Sophia Miles interview, Part 1, Pod 2, which I very much enjoyed. It's funny to think, he says, that at the time, Jamie and Richard really didn't know if it was going to be a success and are still going strong 73 pods later.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Gosh. I feel like we decided we were going to do this on a walk around Cookham before we were doing Fab Live at some point.
You say we decided. You mean you think that you told me we were going to do it on a walk around Cookham?
Yeah,
you're
pretty
probably
much.
Right. Yeah, and here we are.
I kind of remember having an ice cream, but maybe we didn't have an ice cream as well. Anyway, yes, thank you, Phil. Yeah, there are so many interviews and interviewees to go back and listen to. Pop back and start from the beginning if you like.
Why not?
You don't have to, but there's some great interviews back there, like Gary Newman and Sophie Aldred and Nick Briggs and Mike Tucker and David Quantick and Lizo Mazumba.
Very good.
I could go on. Phil Plate.
Yes.
Kevin Grazier.
Yes.
There's a couple of people I always forget, and I think, oh gosh,
like Wayne Forrester.
Yes, like Wayne Forrester, exactly. Lee Sullivan.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all there.
I mean, you can just go and look on the website for all in there, gerryanderson.co.uk/podcast. I almost forgot what we were doing. And actually, we've got there some curated episodes. So if you're joining us for the first time, pop back there after you finish listening, and you can listen to the Gary Newman piece, the Shane Rimmer episode, David Graham, and another one
great.
which we think are, sort of highlights in terms of interview features.
Yeah, lovely.
There we go.
Talking of highlights. Hey,
We're doing very well with neat
I know.
segues today, aren't we?
it's seamless, isn't it?
It's almost like it was scripted. No.
It was like it was scripted.
But the segues aren't, are they? Well, very little of it is. Yeah. And in fact, as you pointed out at the beginning, most of my stuff that I'd written in the script was irrelevant. So there we go. Yes, it is the randomizer, in which Chris uses his device, known as the randomizer, hence the name of the segment,
Yeah.
to choose a random Gerry Anderson episode to sit down and watch and chat about. So should we hand over to Chris and Marina to see where they are in their latest adventure?
Yeah, all right then.
Okay.
Telegram for Mr. Spanner.
Oh yes, thank you. That's for me. I mean, I'm not D Spanner, but I am, well, A Spanner. It's this week's randomizer printout. Right, let's see. Well, it's Thunderbirds, it's The Uninvited, and it's right now. Well, what a surprise to be back with Thunderbirds at last. I'm just scrolling back through the list to see when was the last time we actually had any Thunderbirds, and that was, I think, Pod 46 with Security Hazard. So we had Moving Your Dead at the beginning of the year as well. So this is only the third episode of Thunderbirds we've had this year, which I think is all right. I mean, so long as each show appears like, say, 3 times a year, it sounds about right. It's just surprising it's been so long between appearances for good old International Rescue. Anyway, here we are. And Scott Tracy is in trouble already. He's being shot at by some naughty people in some naughty planes.
I'm under attack from 3 unidentified aircraft and taking evasive action.
I'm gonna fly around a bit. Oh, that actually worked. The enemy plane didn't follow him. Oh, that one did. And they're going down. Ooh.
Nose up, Scott. Nose up.
I love that. Nose up, nose up. Remember, son, don't crash into the ground. Whatever you do, don't crash into the ground, Scott. Now, Scott, what did I just say about crashing into the ground? Oh, dear.
Oh, Mr. Tracy, how terrible. What can have happened?
And that's where, if you know your Thunderbirds, I should explain. I'm watching this on the Japanese Blu-rays, and for that shot of Tintin climbing out of her chair, or being lifted out of her chair by a puppeteer, you could always see the puppeteer's hand at the bottom of the screen. On this version, they've just trimmed that out. They haven't zoomed in on the image or anything. They've just trimmed that section of the bottom of the frame off, and as nice as this version of the show looks,
Base. Thunderbird 1.
I always hate it when there are restorations of shows like this, and there's always that moment where someone else has decided that actually this, which has always looked this way, should now look like this. You know, to me, there's a very clear line between restoration and just changing things for the sake of it, and it always bugs me, that kind of thing. Feeling someone else's fingerprints on a show that was made 40, 50 years ago. It's like, no, I know best. No, just leave it. And I know that hand thing is very, very obvious.
5,000 miles from base.
But, it's part of the show.
Ow! Some crack I got.
He's bleeding quite badly, Scott, from his head there, and it's always quite well, not shocking, because I've sat through enough of Captain Scarlet and Joe 90 to get used to the sights of puppets bleeding, but it's always strange in the world of Thunderbirds to see blood. I'm not sure when. That's another thing I'd like to find out. When was the first sight of blood in any of these shows?
Scott was on his way back from the Tokyo fire when he was.
I'd assume it would have to be Four Feather Falls, maybe at some point. Although obviously there would have been a lot of bloodshed in the world of Torchy, but they could never show that.
Virgil, there's not a moment to lose. Off you go.
Right, Father. I heard that, Mr. Tracy. I've selected the pod we shall need.
What, you have special rescuing Scott from the desert equipment. Okay, I can go with that.
Some mystery, this, Father.
Yes, son.
Maybe a desperate situation, but Brains has, of course, remembered to bring along his nifty little desert adventuring hat.
Oh, excuse me, Alan. I just thought I heard a signal.
Oh, it's moments like that really...
I could figure what had happened to him.
He got shot down.
Hot out there in that sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. You're fulfilling your role as Captain Obvious today very well. Yeah, I do love those little moments like that when Jeff thought Scott was radioing in. It's one of those things that, you know, probably most of the time was padding to get them out to 50 minutes. But it works so well in this show. It's great to see, you know, International Rescue, they are a real family. And it's just, it's so nice.
I'm fed up to the back teeth with this lousy expedition.
You wanted to come on the trip.
I must have been crazy. Now shut up and hang on.
So these two friendly gentlemen are Lindsay and Wilson, who... Oh, they spotted something.
Hey, Wilson, what was that?
Hey, you must be seeing things. It was a mirage. Yeah, that's right, it was a mirage.
This is the point where he turns back to Lindsay, and Lindsay himself was a mirage who was never really there. He fell out of the truck 3 days ago. And Wilson's been talking to himself the whole time.
It's International Rescue. Wilson, it's International Rescue.
I'm not quite sure the heroic music is quite appropriate for the site of Thunderbird 1, Downed in the Sand, but actually that was always... There's always something very poignant about seeing Thunderbird 1 in this episode and, of course, the main one, Thunderbird 2 in Terror in New York City, having crashed. You know, obviously we saw Eagles crashing left and right in space 1999 and Spectrum passenger jets dropping out of the sky and things like that. But there was never any sort of emotional response, at least from me, in the way that there is to seeing one of the Thunderbirds just crashed and wrecked, because ultimately, you know, whoever was at the controls, be it Scott or Virgil, they were just trying to help, and they'd been out doing great things, and then somebody else decided, actually, you know what? Shoot you down. Just shoot you down. And it's so... There is that sort of... It's very understated as well, that sort of poignant element that the helpers need help themselves.
Well, I was on my way home when these three fighters came out of nowhere and forced me down here.
There's no human life for miles and miles around here. We know, mister, because we've been all over these parts.
Well, what are you fellas doing in this neck of the woods anyway?
Oh, we're not human.
An expedition to locate the lost pyramid of commodities. What's the latest about Scott, Father?
Oh, Tintin fixed him up all right. And Brains has repaired the radio. It got smashed during the skirmish with those fighters.
What's Jeff holding?
Got any ideas who they might have been, Father?
No, John,
He's
it's a
holding
real
a document
mystery.
with a...
I'm going to have to report it.
official report. Okay.
I guess he doesn't have to do
It's got official report written on it with the words in very very sort of
right now they're settling
casual, well, not casual, but sort of elegant font. It's quite sweet.
Gee, that apple pie you brought out was good, Tintin. Is there any more?
No, Scott. You scoffed a lot.
Oh yeah, that's the primary food source on Tracy Island. Apple pie. You probably have a whole hanger full of apple pie that Grandma just keeps making, because it was all they ever seemed to eat on this show.
How about some more of that coconut crumble, Scott?
Oh, gee, no thanks.
God, Grandma's got a 2-tier trolley full of food.
Say, Scott, have you any idea where those fighters might...
Just cakes and biscuits and, of course, pie.
Okay. That's enough questions for the time being. I guess Scott can take it that we're glad he got home safe.
Well, I've got you all as...
Scott, take it as read that we're glad to see you and we don't have to say it.
Just imagine them finding you in all that expanse of desert.
I hope they have as much luck in finding their pyramid.
Well, it was certainly nice to have a change of faces, wasn't it?
Okay, I get your meaning, Linda.
These two explorer guys bantering with each other, well, banter/arguing with each other the whole time, they do oddly remind me of a sort of
Too fast again.
Relax.
married couple.
Just you keep your mind on navigation.
I mean, you got one telling the other, "Oh, you're driving too fast," and saying, "Oh, it was nice to have visitors for a while, wasn't it? We don't see that many people." It's a strange dynamic, but it kind of works.
She's sliding. Pull around.
Ah, for Pete's sake, shut up.
The trailer's unhooked and fallen down the hill. Oh, skidded down the hill.
You stupid fool. I knew this would happen.
All our gasoline and water is in that trailer. We gotta get it.
Oh. Did you have a plan B on that one?
What are we gonna do? We're over 300 miles from our base camp.
I know, and only 3 gallons of juice left in the truck.
That's not gonna get us far.
Oh, we'll just have to radio base for help.
I put the radio on the trailer.
Blast it! Why do you have to do a fool thing like that?
Why didn't you expect that I would drive like a crazy person? Oh, the radio survived. Miraculously.
Base Camp Salar from Wilson. Come in, Salar. Come in, Salar. This is Wilson. Do you read me? What's wrong with it? Come on, baby, start working.
What's wrong with it? All that's happened is it's fallen out of the truck and it's full of sand. What's wrong with the damn thing?
Okay, Alan, time to relieve John in the space station.
All set, Father.
How about you, Scott? Sure you feel quite fit again?
A1, Father.
All right, boys. Away you go.
So this is literally the first thing you ask somebody to do, like a day or two after a massive head injury. Just get them to fly a space rocket. And this is the only episode, and I think I've waffled over that bit, that says that Scott takes turns as space monitor on Thunderbird 5, which, you know, traditionally we've only ever seen shared between Alan and John. And I always thought that was a kind of strange inclusion in this episode. I sometimes think that maybe they just mentioned that to sort of take advantage of Scott's concussion. It's like, oh, he's not feeling too well. What jobs can we get him to do? Scott, you spend a month in space every so often. That's it. So I don't have to. Give him a bit more to do than sitting behind his mobile control desk telling people what to do. Anyway, we're now getting the glorious.
Take up launch positions.
Thunderbird 3 launch sequence. And yeah, those goofy little figures on the model set, they look so silly in HD. To be honest, they didn't look that good in SD, but anyway, hope you like stock footage from Sunprobe, including Alan miraculously changing his shirt. That is something to admire actually about Thunderbirds, is as great as the launch sequences are, you know, once you've seen them a few times and then they come up again, you know that you can sort of take a moment to just grab a drink or go to the bathroom or something, and you can come back and it'll still be rolling out.
Which way do you want to go?
That's a fool question. Always there's just sand and more sand.
Yeah, but they have water holes in the desert, and I just found me one. 40 miles due north. Let's go. Keep working on that radio.
So Wilson and Lindsay have hatched a plan. They seem to have patched things up for now. I'm sure Lindsay will mention the whole trailer destruction thing when they're in bed together later. They are so sweet as a little married couple. Yep, headcanon. I've decided they're married. Nobody's gonna tell me otherwise.
I was figuring maybe it was the 2 archaeologists who found Scott. They've been trying to reach their base camp.
Okay, John. I'll keep watch. See ya.
Aw, just go away, John. Nobody needs you. Aw, and I like John, and I don't understand why Gerry didn't. He's a good guy as John, and it's so sad that he's always up there with no one to talk to.
This heat, it's unbearable. I'll go crazy.
Take it easy, will you? Say, look out there.
And that's Lindsay's going to be Lindsay's catchphrase for this episode. I'll go crazy.
The water hole. You found it. By Jingo Wilson, you found it.
Take a look at that dad-blamed hole. Take a good, long, hard, gall-darn look.
Why, what's wrong?
Take a long, hard, gosh darn, zip, zang, yibbity, bang, whoop, whoop, whoop. That's another thing that was always quite fun about these shows. Old-timey American-sounding slang.
No, it can't be. It's gotta be water. We'll die. Wilson, you gotta do something.
Oh!
We can't just give in.
Oh!
I'll go crazy.
Hold on,
Right.
Lindsay.
Aside from another bout of I'll go crazy, I noticed that behind Wilson,
Then we'll try to reach someone else.
at Lindsay even, there was a clipboard
I got a crazy idea in my head. Maybe it'll work.
with some notes on it, and at the very top of the page was written the word Pop Kiss.
Remember what Tracy said.
So that's a reused piece of supercar stuff, evidently.
Okay, then.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's a yellow sheet of paper, squared paper with a red lines on a graph. Something from Supercar. How unusual.
International Rescue receiving you. What is your position?
Come in, please. International Rescue.
This is International
I like that.
Rescue.
We're in
Can
trouble.
you
We need
hear me?
water. And obviously it is a very serious situation, but it does sort of sound like international rescue. You know, when you hear stories about people who get drunk and phone the police to deliver takeaway or something, it almost sounds like that. I imagine international rescue must have to deal with quite a few crank calls. John probably listens to all of them because, let's face it, there isn't much else to do. I mean, he's back on Earth now, but that's probably the last we'll see of him for this episode.
Father, I've just received a distress call from the Sahara Desert, direct to International Rescue. I think it was from those two guys who helped Scott after he was shot down. They kept saying they were dying of thirst, and then the call faded out.
Can you play back the message? Maybe I could recognize the voice.
Sure thing, coming up.
Calling International Rescue. Come in, please. Do you read me? International Rescue. Can you help us?
That's the guy, all right.
I love how they need Virgil to confirm that, even though John dealt with their distress call and their call when they found Scott. So his expertise, his opinion, they don't count for anything. So that's it. Thunderbird 1 is now off to the rescue, and despite what I said earlier,
There he goes.
Yep.
Well, Tintin, I only hope he gets there in time.
Those launch sequences are still just...
The desert without water, he can be pretty desperate.
Just stunning pieces of work.
We found it, boy. We found it.
Yeah, it's what we came all this way to see. A lost pyramid of Commandades.
You can read hieroglyphics, Lindsay.
I can? But I'm going crazy.
This is the great tomb of King Commandades. I can't see any door, Wilson. This place is probably solid rock.
Well, there's your door.
But how did it open? Say, listen. Do you hear that?
Yeah. Water. Come on.
Now, something I didn't understand with this episode, even as a kid. So we later find out that the pyramid is under control of the naughty people who shot down Scott. With that in mind, why did they open the door to let Winsy and Lilson in?
Feet along the walls.
I know it's... I mean, it's potentially an easy way to kill them, just seal them in the pyramid, but if they're going to die of exposure left outside anyway, I don't get what the... Unless it's an automatic door. Oh, puppet skeleton.
It looks that way. This guy tried to get the door open too. He never made it.
What are we gonna do? We're trapped.
I know what I'm
That was, that's such a ghoulish little moment, that puppet skeleton. And I like as well that it doesn't look like a human skeleton. It looks like a Thunderbird's human skeleton, which is such a nice touch.
Anyone there?
It's a very nice interior set for this pyramid. Lots of statues and logos on the wall and such, and oh,
there it is.
The eternal fountain.
Yep. Just running backwards and forwards because we didn't film enough of it. And the water looks very blue. Almost as if it's not normal water.
International Rescue from Thunderbird 1. I found the Jeep. But get this, it's abandoned outside a pyramid.
Are you sure you have the correct location, Scott?
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but it's a pyramid. I'm going down to take a look.
That's a very odd comment from Jeff. It's like, we found the Jeep. Scott recognises it. There's a pyramid in the right place. Not sort of, wow, that's unusual. And I know, Scott had a crack on the head, but come on, he's been allowed to fly a space rocket. There's clearly no concern about his physical fitness now.
I don't figure this. The prince just ended a blank wall. There's no entrance anywhere.
And again, they're just opening the door to let people in. And it's also interesting that the door only opens when somebody says, there is no sign of any door. Is it keyed to only open automatically to the sound of someone saying the word door or entrance? Because otherwise I can't understand why... Oh, there's that skeleton again. I can't understand why the inhabitants of this pyramid are just letting people wander in for no reason.
Hey, the door!
So saying, hey, the door, didn't stop the door from closing, so I guess it isn't voice activated.
Mountains of treasure.
If somebody could tell me why the pyramid door keeps opening to let in complete strangers, yeah, please let me know. I can't figure it at all. I don't get what the people who live under the pyramid actually get from letting strangers in.
We're rich, Wilson. The richest men alive.
Yeah.
Despite what I said earlier about people fiddling with the restorations of these episodes, seeing episodes like this with all this glittering, colourful treasure in full HD, they look just beautiful.
Trapped.
And here's Scott to help our two archaeologist pals.
Hi there. International Rescue at your service.
You can't fool me. You've come to steal our treasure.
Now hold on. You called us for help, and that's why I'm here.
What did you shoot at him for? He's come to rescue us.
No, he only wants the treasure.
You're crazy.
So,
don't be a fool.
Lindsay has gone a bit nuts. Oh, that candle on the wall behind Scott.
Needs help. You're gonna die.
Again, the attention to detail on these shows. The torch on the wall has burnt like a section of the wall above it, to show how often it's been used.
Want it? I'll just have to blast you out.
Oh, so good attention to detail on these shows. Anyway, Scott's now locked in a gun battle with Lindsay, and I always wondered...
You'll have to kill me before I let you have my treasure.
I assumed as a kid, and I think that's what you're meant to... what you're always meant to assume, is that Lindsay went a bit nuts because he drank the water.
Now I have you, Mr. Clever Tracy. Come on out.
But the thing is, Wilson drank from it as well. You can see the water on his beard, but he doesn't go nuts.
Die, don't you?
So, yeah, either Lindsay drank more, or Lindsay's been complaining all episode. He is a bit more fragile than Wilson. And Matt Zimmerman's doing a great job of playing his craziness. And that's it. Scott's cover is gone.
There's no more protection, Tracy. Now you will die.
Only one thing can save him now. We used Stingray music. And two gentlemen wearing the same outfits as the people who shot Scott down. The Z or Z on their heads.
Come on. Ah, don't worry. I was only stunned when I fell.
Well, you certainly fooled me.
That's the excuse I'm giving for not helping you, and I'm sticking with it.
I guess we'd better do as they say.
So the inhabitants of this pyramid, I'm gonna, even though I don't think they're referred to as this in the episode, this is what they've come to be known as zombites, so I'll stick with zombites. It's easier to say than these guys, people living under the pyramid.
When you're crossing that desert.
Scott and the explorers being taken, I guess, beneath the pyramid on the underground monorail system that these guys have. And this, I think, is an episode where I think it's a really strong episode because it's so unusual. And it's not...
Where are they taking us now?
It's not sort of atypical for the series in the way that a lot of the later Lady Penelope spy stuff was, because it still focuses very heavily on our characters.
Explosive gas, yeah.
They are
Highly lethal, too.
they're not really rescuing anybody in this episode aside from Scott and helping the two explorer guys, but they're having an adventure as part of their sort of normal routine. And I also really love the idea of a lost civilization that's not a primitive civilization. They haven't, they live under a pyramid, but they've continued to progress with their technology to the extent that they have this monorail system, and they have these fighters like the ones that shot Scott down. You've just seen as we passed over their hangar bay. And they are a very cool looking and sounding set of baddies. They've all got superb beards and moustaches. The leader of the Zombites has got a fabulous moustache. He oddly reminds me of Titan, even though he doesn't look like Titan or doesn't even have Ray Barrett doing the voice. It's David Graham playing the Zombite leader. But more reused Stingray music as they prepare their missiles for launch. Now they're loading out their missiles, ready to open fire on Thunderbird 2. I also like the language as well that they use. It does seem to have had a bit of thought put into it. It's not just utter gibberish. Like, he's repeating that word, which I think is sort of up a bit more. Considering we don't actually see much of these people for this episode, they are very well thought out. Even though Scott is now shooting at them. I think it is a shame that we don't see more of them in this episode, or indeed that they never returned.
I think those missiles were too wide of the mark to be intended seriously.
Yeah, it was like kind of a warning.
They're sort of comedy joke missiles, Virgil. Gun battle.
Quick!
Zombite control room. It's the cat alarm! There's a cat loose! So, yeah, as much as I like the Zombites, I'm still a bit vague on their plan. Regarding, why did they take Scott and the archaeologists to the control room? I mean, Scott and the archaeologists have just staged an escape, and now they're heading straight out of there. But, were they just going to kill them? Or, again, I don't know why they let them into the pyramid. Oh, Scott, no, whatever you're thinking. Scott, don't take aim at the gas tanks. Oh, okay. So he was going to be shot at by a Zombite technician. He shot the technician.
What's going on? Keep going, Wilson. You're not going to stop us now.
Gas. Gas is leaking in. Oh, there's a meter thingy. Uh-oh. Yep. We have fire. We have fire explosions. Oh, and what looked like bits of the frame that pieces of model kits would have come in, just glued to the wall.
Glass protecting us from the fumes.
And there's gas leak in the pyramid. The little monorail train, which of course later appeared in Crime Wolf. This international rescue suddenly had a very similar little monorail system that went between all the rooms on the base.
Moments, no good, Tracy. This is maximum.
I also wonder with the Zombites, to what extent, this is supposedly a lost civilization. We only see like half a dozen guys.
This place blows. It's gonna
Was there more under the pyramid than just the hangar and the one control room that we saw? Is there an entire city under that pyramid, or is this just a sort of, a lone outpost from which they launched the fighters. There must be more to the Zombite civilization than just 6 people. But if they're... I can't believe they all live under this pyramid, because we just don't see enough to support that. Having trouble breathing, the gas is getting into the control room now. What a shame they only had one monorail car, because they have absolutely no way of pursuing Scott and the archaeologists now.
What's going on? You've waken out a moment too soon, Lindsay. In a couple of minutes, you're going to have to run for your life like you've never run before.
By the way, are we still enemies? I don't know. You seem okay now. Yet Lindsay's back to his old self. Oh, and the poor Zombites are having some fairly dramatic acting moments as they all pass out from the gas leak.
Let's get out of here.
Now, one of the reasons I prefer to believe that the entire Zombite civilization can't live under this one pyramid is because of what's about to happen. Obviously everything's exploding, so we kind of know how this is going to end. It's a kind of thorny subject, and I have brought it up before, that this episode basically ends with International Rescue...
Hold it, Virgil. It's Scott.
...indirectly committing genocide. If you subscribe to the theory that the entire Zombite civilization is under this one pyramid, then Scott, even though it was an accident, Scott, his shot, sort of, his little gunfight, sort of set off a lot of fires and explosions in the pyramid, which is going to wipe out everybody living in it. I don't know about you, but I personally don't believe that. Genocide, be it accidental or deliberate, is quite in keeping with the sort of international rescue ethos of saving people from dying. But then, I suppose, by the same logic, why do international rescue have weapons? It's kind of a mixed message there. Anyway, Thunderbird 1 clearing the area just in time. Oh, and I love this. Just before the pyramid blows up, this one Zombite technician wakes up and instantly collapses again. It's almost a sort of beep kind of moment where he just wakes up and realizes that he's got 2 seconds before everything explodes.
Yeah, the last pyramid who commanded these is lost forever now.
And so is everybody who may or may not have been living under it.
Look at that. What an escape. Yeah. We certainly got a lot to thank International Rescue for.
But Zombites, not so much. Not so much. The Zombites, they, Well, they won't be bothering anybody again. But, I don't know. Was that an accidental genocide? I'm really not sure, because it's not really clear if that was the entire civilization or just a little small outpost. Anyway, that was The Uninvited, and it's always been one of my favourite episodes of the show, because, as I said, it is something so different, it's so unusual, and it's not the kind of thing you'd expect the show to try to do, sort of lost civilization story. And the fact that they pulled it off so well is just again, it's the attention to detail on the interior sets and the atmosphere of the thing. It's certainly one of the earliest episodes where the padding doesn't really feel like padding, because I assume the original cut was just the explorers get trapped in the pyramid and International Rescue go out and save them. But with the Scott bit at the beginning, we get a bit more time with Scott, we get a bit more time with the archaeologists, we get to know them all a bit better. But of course, as much as I love this episode, I wish we had more focus on the Zombites, exploring the civilization, who they were, and of course the ending with them all being wiped out, possibly, doesn't quite sit right with International Rescue's core message. But otherwise, a really good, one of my favourite episodes of Thunderbirds.
We love the randomizer, don't we?
Another star turn from Chris Dale there.
Yes. I mean, how does he have the time to do that? There's Big Rat Bites, of course, on Fab Live.
Yeah.
There's all the stuff that
he didn't do one for Fab 28, Fab Live 28 because he was on holiday.
That's right. But there's the primers.
Yeah, there's the primers. There's all that other stuff that he does. Writes articles for the website.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Chris, how do you do it?
Has he got a life?
Yes.
Of course he has.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the best kind of life possible is spending it doing Gerry Anderson related stuff, right?
That's right. Can you imagine?
Nice save
Can you
there,
imagine
Richard.
living, eating, breathing, and sleeping Gerry Anderson?
Just a bit, yeah.
I thought you might.
Yes, well, today I've been working on a 509-line spreadsheet to do a giant budget amendment. So that's the sort of Gerry Anderson stuff that I live every day.
Yes.
So,
wow, it's cutting edge, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Anyway, that is about it for
I think
Pod
so.
74, unless you have any other things you wish to tell us, Richard.
No, I'm spent.
You're spent?
Yeah, peaked.
Oh, okay.
I have no more to give.
Fair enough. Well, then, just as a reminder, do pop along and sign up to the Captain Black Friday priority list, bit.ly/CBF19VIP. I wish I should have made that a little bit less...
A little snappier.
Annoying and long, but there we go.
No, it's good.
CBF19VIP, and you'll be one of the first to be notified when the sale goes live in a couple of weeks' time. But until Pod 75...
Ooh.
Should we let them go?
Yeah, let's let them go. They've been very good.
All right. Thank you for sitting quietly and listening in. And off you pop, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
All right. That went very well, I think, for our 74th podcast.
Wasn't too bad, yeah. Good. I've got square eyes from all the spreadsheeting today.
Have you?
Oh, dear. Really, yeah.
Well, that's funny, because I've got a square bum for having driven down to Bournemouth and back in the last 4 hours.
Go between your square bum and my square eyes.
No, I don't think that's an image anyone wants to think about, Jamie.
You started it.
No, I did not.
Okay, fine. Yeah, well, I better go and get on with the spreadsheet, in fact, because it's not going to finish itself annoyingly, although you would think by now, with technology and all that, it would do.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? Yes. Have you not got a little slow-mo device that can do all that for you? He was very good at spreadsheets, I seem to remember.
Ernie the dog is the closest I've got, and I wouldn't let him touch my spreadsheet now. I better go and feed the dog, actually. So have a nice day.
Thanks, and you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?